if I had to describe punks in one single sentence, me and my internet friends. Hi, I'm gmoney. I'm a CryptoPunk ape. I own one CryptoPunk that people know about. The rest are in my undoxed wallets. And I am the founder of Admit One in 90cc. To be honest, I don't really remember how I first heard about CryptoPunks. I remember how I first heard about NFTs. And my thesis was at the time was I was going to buy a bunch of NFTs, a bunch of different projects. I had heard about CryptoPunks. I remember I thought that they were really ugly. Like it's so funny how I went from, oh, these things are so ugly when I first saw them to now like I'll sit there and be like, oh yeah, that's a beautiful punk. That's like a good looking punk. And I said, and I think at the time the floor price was around like $1,500. And I said, I don't want to buy CryptoPunks. I want to buy the next CryptoPunks. And so I proceeded to start buying a bunch of different projects in the space. I ended up minting a bunch of Chromie Squiggles. And then I ended up in the Chromie Squiggle Discord. And Snowfro was at that point, he goes, dude, stop wasting your money buying Chromie Squiggles. You need to at least buy a zombie. And over the next few days, I believe it was him, Nate Alex, and Justin Trimble all red-pilled me on CryptoPunks. At that point in time, this is late 2020, just like the punk Discord was awesome. Like probably some of the biggest names in the space were hanging out there on a daily basis back then. And you know, that was obviously before the bull run in 2021, so the space was still really small. I never felt like anybody was trying to dump on me. Like I felt like they generally wanted to add more community members to the community and increase the community and wasn't like predatory, like, hey, like buy this zombie at like 100K when it's really worth 20, right? It was just like, I thought people were just really fair and just generally wanted to help people learn. So I have a background in finance with a focus on tech and consumer discretionary. So I used to trade long, short US equities. I think I always had a really good eye for catching trends and especially consumer focused trends pretty early. Because I think even with NFTs, like I wasn't in the space in 2017, but I think when I started to understand it, I said, wow, this is going to be something that's big because I could see a use case for it. I have a really good portfolio, I think, of punks and of squiggles. And my thesis on those is I think that very much the same thesis I had when I started was some of the stuff that was made in late 2020 was going to be museum worthy and would end up in museums at some point. And so the key was to find some of them and then hold on for dear life, right? Like, and so the way I feel about punks and squiggles in particular is that these are probably the best assets you can own in the space that I feel comfortable owning, and that hopefully, knock on wood, I never need to sell, right? And I think like the thing that gets me really interested about the next few years is as financing starts to come into the system on like a grand scale, in the sense that being able to post a CryptoPunk as collateral and get low interest loans on them, then all of a sudden you don't need to necessarily sell them in order to unlock some of that capital in there. And you can use that the same way people use mortgages on their home, right? Margin on their stock portfolio. And I think as the space matures and that credit becomes available in the system, then I think value begins to accrue to the best projects in the space. Where, I mean, if you look at CryptoPunks, like that floor price is held pretty strong compared to pretty much everything else in the space. The volatility is way lower than almost everything else in the space. And I think if you want to talk about a true blue chip, I know that term gets thrown around very loosely, way more than it should, but that is kind of the definition of a blue chip, right? If you look at like the traditional stock market, and I see punks at the top of that list, which hopefully in a perfect world, I never need to sell them. So, but that's me speaking from the investment side. And I think what Matt and John did with CryptoPunks was like something really special, right? And I think the fact that the model was copied so much means that, you know, a lot of other people realized how special it was. They think there's something special for whatever reason about that 10,000 number that makes it memeable, for lack of a better word, right? I worked with Justin Aversano, and we put 100 CryptoPunks on billboards all throughout Miami, billboards and bus stops all throughout Miami. And it was in that moment that I really realized that crypto was going to be bigger than even I initially thought it was, like this entire NFT movement, because I saw the way the community just rallied around it. And it was a really grassroots endeavor, right? In order to get your punk on a billboard, you had to pay to have your punk featured. And we went around to different members of the community to see if they would be interested. And when it was unveiled, like it was just so well received that we ended up doing it the next month in New York for NFT NYC, and then again in London in the month of June. So it was just, I think, something really special of making me realize how powerful the community is, because Matt and John were, they were obviously part of the process, but they were never really an active contributor. So you kind of see the power of community forming. Every project out there will talk about mass adoption, right? And it's like and everybody has their own twist of how do you onboard the masses. And I'm probably really biased here, but I think CryptoPunks is like one of the first communities to really start onboarding people in the sense of the explanation of what an NFT is, right? And since then, I think a lot of people have run with that and put their own version of that out there. But really, I think it all started with punks, right? Even because punks were obviously around before apes were minted, and at that point in time, the punk was, the PFP to own in the space.
What do you think like entrepreneurs and creatives could learn from CryptoPunks?
I would say probably just do something you're passionate about, because I think Matt and John were probably amazing. I can't imagine that when they made this collection that they thought it was going to turn into, one, the inspiration that it was for an entire generation of this space, and then two, to be as lucrative as it was going to be. So you just never know what will come from just doing something you're passionate about.